You know how people say, cats are emotionless, their faces are always blank, they don't show emotion, they're just angry all the time, which actually may be true. And they definitely don't show pain. Well, actually, they do. And today we're going to talk about how we can actually estimate or at least get an idea of whether or not they're in pain just by looking at their facial expression, the feline. Oh my goodness, I should do that. By using the feline grimace scale. So we're going to talk about facial expressions in cats today. For now, just introduce myself. My name is Penny. This is Cat Chat with Penny because I'm Penny and I do a cat chat. Every Wednesday, I talk about some topic in catedness. I run Mew Mew House, which is a retirement home and hospice for cats. And that's why these things are near and dear to my heart. And it actually makes sense. This week, I'm thinking about how you can detect pain when looking at a cat's face, because I do deal with hospice cats, and in particular I have one kitty who is in hospice right now. She was diagnosed with cancer last week, and I have to watch her carefully now. She seems to be doing fine, but when she starts being clearly in pain, then it's time for me to do something about that. And as I was talking about before, cats don't always show their pain, and there's good reasons for that. Before I go any further, I'd be interested to know about where you are. What are you doing? Not actually, no, you don't have to tell me what you're doing, but I would like to know what part of the world you're in. I'm just outside getting some wood to put into the fireplace. It's about to snow like crazy here. I'm in Western New York, and I know much of the United States is under some sort of winter storm warning, although I did just sit through a webinar that took place in Arizona, and they're nice and warm there right now, and I may feel a little bitter about that. That point notwithstanding, let me know where you're watching from. I would like to know. And if you're watching this on replay, you can use hashtag replay so that I know you watched it later, or you can use hashtag live to tell me that you're watching it right now. I will be honest, I can't always see everyone's comments, so I'll have to go in and check later. I'm broadcasting live on YouTube, 2 different places, on Facebook and on LinkedIn. So, go ahead and comment there, and I will check later to make sure I'm addressing anyone's comments. So, how do we assess pain in cats? Because there's reasons why cats, like all carnivores, don't want to show pain. They're carnivores. They have to be the strong ones, and any sign of weakness is going to get them in trouble. So cats in particular are very stoic about their pain. You think that they're not in pain, but they actually are. But they're not going to show it because they need to appear strong and pain-free in order to survive. So what can we do? Well, it turns out, if you're looking at a dog, you can almost always tell if they're feeling good or feeling bad because their facial expressions are actually really super human-looking. Cats, on the other hand, show facial expressions a little bit more subtly than dogs, but it's there. And we can use the feline grimace scale to determine how much pain they may be in. So there's 5 points on the feline grimace scale. And for each of these 5 points, you can score from 0, which is they look pain-free, to 1, which is sort of like some evidence of some discomfort, to 2, which is that it's showing signs of pain. And what you do is, for these 5 points, you score them 0 to 2, and if you wind up with a total score, you add up at the end. If your total score is greater than 4, then there's probably pain going on there, and it's probably time to do something about it. Now, if it's super high, like if they're scoring 2 on everything, then that's like, take your cat to the vet. So what are these 5 points? We can look at where their ears are sitting on their head, because they do move their ears, but also where they're sort of sitting when they're not actually listening. not engaged with anything. You can tell how they're feeling. You can look at the shape of their eyes, if they're wide open, if they're squinching. Um, their muzzle, their upper lip, they actually do show a lot of expressions there. It's long and relaxed, or it's munched up. Their whiskers themselves say a lot. I mean, if they're relaxed and hanging, or if they're like sticking straight out, and also where they're holding their head. If their heads are high, then they're feeling good. So let's talk about these more specifically. Their ear position, there are three states. The relaxed, I'm not in pain state is their ears are forward, or they're upright, they're relaxed. Okay, yes, I'm illustrating for you. You should enjoy this. That's a score of 0. That's fine. Now, if their ears are kind of to the side, this is much more difficult than I thought it would be, but if they're kind of to the side, kind of hanging a little bit, that's an indication. That would get a score of 1, where, if they're kind of just sitting that way and they're awake, then yeah, they might be experiencing some pain. That's a score of 1. Now, if their ears are sort of down, now I'm not talking about back, like if their ears are flattened against their skull, that's a response. That's protecting their ears because they're either afraid or really, really angry. But if they have what we call airplane ears, or the ears are kind of hanging, but they're almost horizontal, it's a score of 2, where there's some clear discomfort there. So that's point number 1, is their ear position. Point number 2 is their eye shape. I mean, cats, and now you get to know your cat. But if their eyes are wide open, if they're round, if you can see most of their pupil, that gets a score of 0. Their eyes are wide open. Think about yourself. When you're feeling good, your eyes are open. When you're not feeling good, your eyelids start to droop. Now, if their eyelids are drooping a little bit, which, they're partially open, not all the way open, that gets a score of 1. And it could just be that they're really sleepy, just like with us. Some of these things could be irrelevant. But if you see that, it gets a score of 1. Now, if your cat is squinting, I mean, think about it. When you're in pain, what do? Right? If the cat is clearly squinting, that gets a score of 2. All right? That's clear discomfort. So you get that from the eye shape. Now let's talk about the muzzle tension. And mostly you're talking about the upper lip. Like imagine if you're pursing your lips. Okay? If you're relaxed, your whole face sort of hangs. And they've got, they have their upper lip, which is nice and round. And if it's nice and round and relaxed, then that gets a score of 0. There's no reason to think there's anything wrong. If it starts to sort of shift towards a little bit more elliptical, like they're kind of making a bit of a face, look, we make the same face, then, you might give that a score of 1, sort of a little bit of a wince. And a score of 2 is when it's gone to being the really elliptical. And you can see this just in the shape of their muzzle. Again, this is, you compare this to, your cat. What is the shape of the muzzle usually? And if it becomes very squished and elliptical, that gets a score of 2, and the cat is clearly in discomfort. Now, whiskers are an interesting thing to look at. Now whiskers are very important to cats for a lot of reasons. They use them for feeling, and they do move them. It's really fun to watch them move their whiskers. But if they're sort of in a neutral position, and they're sort of curved and hanging down, relaxed, then they're not in pain. But what happens, and this sort of coincides with the muscle tension or the muzzle tension, as they're in more pain, they start to become more erect and sticking straight out. Instead of hanging down, they're sticking straight out. And so if you see a lot of them sticking straight out, that might get a score of 1. And if they're really just sort of coming out and some of them seem to be going up and they're not really curving down at all, that gets a score of 2. And finally, the head position. I mean, if their head is above their shoulders, they're feeling great. But when their head starts to encroach on their shoulders, I mean, when you're not feeling well, you kind of hunch over. Cats do too. So if they're a little bit hunched over, their head is kind of around their shoulders, they don't have their neck extended, that gets a score of 1. But if you see them with their head down, or they're sort of all crunched up, but often the head down posture is pretty indicative of a lot of pain. So these are the things I'm looking for with Peanut, to see how much discomfort she's experiencing right now. And yeah, it's there. Um, I mean, her eyes are still wide open, her ears are still forward. She is sort of hunched a lot these days, so I can tell she's uncomfortable. Um, so and it makes sense. I mean, she has mouth cancer, so her whole face is swollen. So when looking at the whiskers, I have to look at the unaffected side. And that's starting to show evidence of discomfort over there as well. But she still is interested and engaged in things, and we know this is going on. But if you see this in a cat that looks otherwise healthy, that's when you need to start going to the vet. Now, this isn't just stuff that I've made up. You can, and I'll put this in the comments somewhere, you can go to felinegrimacescale.com and download. They have a little handy worksheet, or like a flyer, one-page flyer, but they also have a tutorial on how to interpret these things. They have both drawings and photographs of cats that are showing these various positions, and they are subtle. But these are the things that veterinarians can use to determine how much pain a cat may be in. But then you can use this as well. This is not rocket science. This is not difficult. If you know your animal at all, you know what its face looks like, and you can tell. All right. And me working with senior and hospice cats a lot, I mean, most of the older animals in the house do show some signs of pain, and I watch this really closely. And it's actually been very helpful for me to start, learning more about the feline grimace scale, just so that I can, it's been intuitive to me, but now I actually can put numbers to it and be like, oh, I didn't realize that mattered. So this is useful, and you're never too old, too familiar with cats to learn something else. So go ahead and look this up and learn something. If you like what I presented today, please like and share this video. If you're watching from the Cat Chat with Penny Facebook group, you can't share from there, but you can go to the Mew Mew House Facebook page, or you can go to YouTube or LinkedIn and share from those places as well. So you can like it, share it, make comments. I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on this. And as I mentioned, I do all of this to support and give you guys information about my experiences running Mew Mew House, which is a retirement home and hospice for cats. And if you're interested in learning more about that, you can go to mewmewhouse.org, and there are ways you can support me there as well. I hope you all had, found this to be interesting, entertaining, and well, maybe not entertaining. It's not always happy fun ball time to know that your cat is in pain, but I hope you found this useful, and I'll see you next week. Bye now.